You are now tuned into the sounds of
Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Tuned in to Big Nate Sports Talk, the show that is on all the time, anytime. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Nathan Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony Haney, for that wonderful introduction. As always, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your host, Nathan Snell of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. This is episode number 395. In this episode, we are talking about the Baltimore Ravens demolishing the Buffalo Bills. Before we get to that, there's a few things, as always, in this up front. Episodes 396 and 397, we'll be talking about the Washington Commanders also demolishing the Arizona Cardinals. 397, we'll talk about the Maryland Terrapins losing to Indiana this past weekend. I'm going to do a video. I haven't really touched on baseball, but I really wanted to talk about the Baltimore Orioles. Be on the lookout for that. There's too much emotion, especially after a loss like what happened last night. It's a lot, and I've heard both sides of the argument, but just stay tuned for me doing that. I do, crossing fingers, my producers and I are hoping to have one of our special guests locked in for episode. So please check that out. That may be the 400th episode. So crossing fingers, but also too, we're moving right along with the WNBA finals. We'll have Brendan Potts on as usual, probably after this whole series, depending on how it goes between all four teams. And there's probably 2-3 more parts of the series, and that'll conclude the WNBA season until college basketball. Women's basketball, Maryland Women's Basketball Media Day is the 17th of this month. I'm hoping to partake in that, so get y'all some good content for the podcast, and even maybe get a small video interviews. We may even have Coach Brenda Freeze on the podcast, crossing fingers. But let's talk about the Sunday night ass whooping that the Buffalo Bills received. Ladies and gentlemen, the Buffalo Bills lost to the Baltimore Ravens 35-10. Need my clip.
Whoa. Now, you got too much dip on your chip. Huh? Who you think I am?
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.
Actually, I'm going to save it for one final thought. But in all seriousness, after coming off what seemed like a loss in Jerry World, I felt as though this Ravens team was looking to reset itself. I don't think they were really satisfied with how they performed in Dallas. This is probably and by this time, week 4, week 5, you kind of see your team start to gel, and they didn't falter in this game. I did a couple times see some positive, some negatives. But for the most part, the Ravens did what the Ravens needed to do. Let's talk about the positives first. The takeaways, but I'm starting with the positives. When I look at this game, a lot of it to me, it starts with our defense. I really want to give this defense some credit. Yes, when you look at the PFF grades, they're very questionable, especially when you have a free agent signing of Marcus Williams, which I thought was a great signing. The unsad part is he's just been dealing with injuries, and it's not his fault. Injuries are part of the game, but he's still been productive through the injuries. Outside of letting up big plays, I saw Kyle Hamilton look like his old, look the Kyle Hamilton of last year. I saw Marlon Humphrey look more motivated. I mean, if you look at the first 3 games, how Buffalo played, the fact you only had 1 touchdown against this Raven defense, and they were more. Baltimore won the trenches. They were more physical, and by the middle of the fourth quarter, they benched him. And I think it was a reality, or not. It was a wake up call. I mean, they were beating on both sides of the ball. When you look at, especially with Josh Allen, I just think that, to me, I'm not taking away from how the Buffaloes played, but that's not the same Buffalo team the last 3 weeks. There were a couple moments in the game. I thought Josh, he had a little rally when they let Shakir get wide open. But there were a lot of miscues. There was an example, Dalton Kincaid, he had a drop where you never see that on, especially from him on a third down. Shakir, he fell, especially later in that half where they were trying to find the spark in their offense. I think out of the 30 attempts, the first time Khalil, he dropped the pass. Keon Coleman, there's a couple times the ball went through his hands. And I just think that's part of the game. And I think the Buffalo Bills will be fine. But when you look at it, I mean, Buffalo tried to move the ball down the field. The play, I don't know what that was. I guess it was a flea flick. I thought it would be, and the Kyle Van Noy strip sack and Travis Jones also in there. But that was probably the most interesting play calling on their side. But that definitely that play right there was the momentum that I think took Buffalo out the game personally. Kyle Van Noy, for me, is the game. He is one of player to me MVPs of the game. I like the acquisition of him. I think my question was, especially when Jadeveon left, the production, because that's a lot of, you're asking a lot of to replace, and he's been looking really good. And especially when you look at pass rushers his age, there are some that kind of start dwindling. And at 33, he's looking really good. I just think that for me, he's had 6 sacks in the last 3 games. And it's funny. The first time, he's been in the league 9 years, he hasn't recorded 6.5 sacks in a season. That is spectacular. And especially when he had a career 9 sacks last year, and he didn't play for us until the middle of September. So it just really speaks to just his attitude coming to work. He's ready to play, and that's a leader. I didn't like the fact that he got called on a holding call, but it happens. But I like that. My next thing is the offensive line. I have to I have to give the offensive line some credit. Okay. Brother Andrew Voorhees was out with this game, so we turned to Patrick McCarry, who was the starter. He has made 39 starts across 4 offensive line positions. None before he played at left guard. Fun fact. He's actually only played 10 snaps up until that game Sunday night against Buffalo. He's versatile. He's consistent no matter where you put him up front. I still think putting him at left guard, and then Roger Rosengarten made his first start. And they really did a good job opening holes for Derrick Henry, and especially that 87-yard opening touchdown drive. We averaged 8 yards a carry, and if you look at it, that's not even. We got to put in Patrick Ricard in there, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, but Patrick McCarry has value. No one's taking it away from him, especially as an undrafted free agent. I know that I can rely on him no matter where you play him. The problem is there are not too many guys like him, and I'm hoping that because I know we gave him an extension about maybe a year ago. That's who I want on my team. I'm just hoping that this is just a start to just see the line. Now, I still think Voorhees he'll pan out. He'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. I'm not concerned about him. Derrick Henry. I still have a question for John Harbaugh. Where you said we didn't bring Derrick Henry here to run the ball 30-something times. Please tell me, what did you bring him here for? And when I look at a guy, he finished the night with 24 carries for 199 yards and a touchdown. Should have been 200. But I'm let it slide because that was the 87-yard touchdown was the longest run from scrimmage since Jamal Lewis. That was 103, if I remember correctly. That's what you bring a guy in for. Now, listen, I'm not expecting him to run the ball 24 times a game because at some point that is going to wear on him. But I still have questions to an extent about the identity. The Ravens, respectfully, have really always been a run-first power football team. And especially when Lamar came in 18, they've stamped that. Last year, they were the best offensive line in the running game and led the league in rushing yards. Look at the last 2 weeks. We've done that. Lamar Jackson ran for 54 yards and a touchdown. When you look at, they ran 270 yards against Dallas, 271 yards against Buffalo. Like, my only concern is in this offense because now defenses will now dictate towards Derrick Henry, and that should open up the playbook, especially the passing game. I'm not concerned about Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Rashard Bateman. I shout out to Chad Ochocinco. I understand where he was coming from because he was a receiver, but those guys are still going to get their touches on the ball. The thing is, Buffalo didn't have the best rushing defense. You're going to go with what works. Now, if they made adjustments, yeah, I'm going to go to the air. There's a couple of times, if you look, Lamar did go to the air. Rashard Bateman would have had a touchdown. Mark Andrews had an uncharacteristic drop. The passing's in there, but they're finding it's give this team another week or two, and they're going to be okay. But really, just to see really just both sides of the ball. When you look at how, especially the defense, I'm going to go back to defense for just a quick second. For Josh Allen to have a game where he was 6 of 29 for 180 yards and a fumble, like and you're seeing how the offense running the ball looks. I think they found their identity. Now, couple things is when I say miss, I'm going to talk about negative. It's really miscues. There's a couple of times where I question the penalty. The penalties were down from this game compared to last game, which was good. But there were some kind of questionable, and there were some dumb penalties. The Marlon Humphrey one, I don't know why he pushed Dalton Kincaid in the face. That made no sense. You know, I thought when Lamar ran and he fumbled the ball, I thought that was a momentum changer to an extent. Even though we got to Josh Allen, you can't find ways to still, like the fact that Shakir on that possession got open in the backfield. I thought he was going to score. That can't happen. Justin Tucker just had 2 extra point field goals. He had extra point field goals. Okay. That's a positive. I mean, those are really my 2 negatives. We just got to be better with the turnovers and the penalty calls. Now back to the positives. Justice Hill, to me, has value. I think locking him up, especially, and the number 2 running back behind Derrick Henry, especially, he's doing everything in this offense. He can do a little bit of everything. He has 6 catches for 70 yards. He finished with 4 carries and 18 yards. Like, to see like how you have an all-pro in Derrick Henry, and then you have Justice Hill, who is a good pass. I think is an underrated pass blocker. He can catch out the backfield. He can be a number 2 running back and give you different looks. And he's also been when he started, he was a special teams player. Like, I think I'm glad that we've valued him and seeing that he's been very integral in this offense, because even when Derrick was out there, they still didn't make adjustments for Justice. And wait till Keaton Mitchell comes back. That's when this offense, I think, is going to be really something. But I'm really proud of these guys, especially when you started off 0-2, and all the chirping, especially from the national media, which we'll get into in a little bit, and then everything is still looking really good. I agree. It's only week 4. Let's celebrate this and get ready for Cincy. Because especially if I'm being honest, you should be 3-1. I can understand the loss of Kansas City. You should have beat Vegas. You should be 3-1. But you beat Dallas and you beat Buffalo. I'm cool with that. We're 500. Because especially when I watch how the Carolina Panthers, especially the team that we lost to, that next week loses. So it just was interesting. But that's neither here nor there. But I'm very proud of this team. If I had to give a game ball, Derrick Henry gets one. Kyle Van Noy, Justice Hill, the offensive line as a whole, they get one. I just really think that you're starting to see it come together. Now, I'm not going to go as far as saying they're the best team in NFL. I think that's very disingenuous to say, because especially it's only 4 weeks. I think they are starting to put it together. And when you look at kind of how the rest of everyone's looking, give me like another 2 weeks and let's see. Monken did a great job with the play calling. You're starting to see Harbaugh kind of trust his coaches and saying, okay, great. But they did everything they needed to do. The defense, Zach Orr, he called a great game. He's starting to find his form. They gave up the fewest yards, 236, and they gave up 10 points. That's better. I'll take that. They're starting to progress. And also, too, Michael Pierce wasn't in there. So guys stepped up. Travis Jones, Nnamdi Madubuike, Broderick Washington, Brent Urban. Those guys stepped up. That's what you want from your team. But also, too, like the offense, I kind of want to see how it looks against Cincy. Because the same Cincinnati team that they aren't the best rushing defense neither. So I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to game plan for us. But for the most part, I'll great win. For Buffalo, like I said, they'll be fine. In fairness, and also too, they did have some injuries, but I will say this, and I have to give Cameron Crumb a shout out for this. A few years ago, it was the 2021 season, if I remember correctly. And the week before, we played Denver, the Denver Broncos. This is when Vic Fangio was head coach. And the Baltimore Ravens were 3 yards from, surpassing, it was like the 1971, 1972 Pittsburgh Steelers for the most, the rushing record in consecutive games. And I still have, I don't have that clip anymore, but I would play it just to play it. And a lot of people didn't like that because the game was over. But what people forget in that game before we got the last possession was Drew Lock threw an interception. People forget that. And then we got the ball back and he got the 3 yards. So we play Cincinnati. I think it's that next week. And this is the year where there's injuries happening across the board. People are questioning, what's happening at Owens Mills, why are these guys getting hurt. I mean, we bringing guys off the street. Joe Burrow and Cincinnati whooped our ass. I think Burrow threw down there for like 400 or 500 yards. And they demolished us. And the game was over and he still threw it. So I went on Twitter. I was like, who's doing this stuff? Like, come on. And essentially my Cameron was like, hold on, man. Like, didn't y'all not do that to Denver? What are you complaining about? That's no excuse. Like, I'm like, in fairness, we didn't have all our guys. He said, that's no excuse. Take the ass whooping. Respectfully, listen, Buffalo missed 3 key players out there. Byron Bale Inspector and Dorian Williams stepped up in the place of Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. That's great. That's no excuse that those guys weren't there. I mean, they damn near put up Baltimore nearly 300 yards of offense in the first half and averaged 10 yards per play in the first 2 quarters. Injuries, respectfully, I get it. That's no excuse. Teron Johnson wasn't there. I mean, as I said, they're going to be back, but it's a next man up mentality. And also, too, like, injuries are part of the game. So they'll be fine. I still think Buffalo's going to be a good team. I still pick them to win the AFC East. I'm not concerned. So those are my takeaways from the Buffalo Bills. The Baltimore Ravens, demolishing the Buffalo Bills. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk about one final thought.
thoughts are running through my mind. Someone took some time to find a minute or two to organize.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies for that. Thank you, producers, for fixing that for me. My final thought is, as you see in the title, you know, I've really, I've tried to be nice. I've tried to understand the perspective of looking to the two perspectives of media coverage. I have been firm in my stance when it comes to the national media, and there are those that are just going to say things that are going to piss you off. Some things that are just going to say for clicks and attention. But more importantly, I the 180 that those in the national media, particularly when it comes to football, it's just baffling to me. You know, I don't watch the show much, and it's a show called The Facility, led by Emmanuel Acho, James Jones, LaShawn Shady McCoy, and Chase Daniel. And in the Friday before the game, something that really stuck with me is they said that Josh Allen's more scary than Lamar Jackson. So this past Monday, they gave him his credit, but then turned around and said that there's levels to this. Do you see how LaShawn McCoy said that? Do you see what I'm like right there? It's the 180. Well, Lamar, you did great, but it's always a but. It's always, well, Lamar, you did this, but Lamar should do this, is this, but. But it's just interesting that it's kind of interesting in this same realm, right? So, again, I'm on Twitter, known as X, and the logic, the fact that some people were really saying, well, Josh Allen needs help. Well, wait a minute. You guys were 3-0 into that loss. Now, when we said that about Lamar, people literally were like, how much more help does he need? They had a bad game. It happens. Now, there are some in the media, like Colin Cowherd, excuse me. My apologies, Colin. Well, now he's changed his stance on Lamar, because when Lamar came in the league, he was very like he's not going to succeed in the NFL, blah 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 blah. Now he's on a complete 180. But the other guys, like the facility, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smiths, like these 180s, and it's just like pick a side and stay with it. Now, we can criticize and say guys have a bad game. When we pointed out the Ravens for the first 2 weeks were not having good games because of play calling, execution. 180 with the excuses, that's no excuse. Like literally, when they lost to the question, I'll use first take. The question was, who's the most disappointing team? They said the Baltimore Ravens. They said Lamar has to play better. Okay. What do you want a guy to do who doesn't play defense, who's not an offensive lineman, who is not the head coach? What do you want the man to do? Question. The Cincinnati Bengals lost on Monday Night Football to the Washington Commanders. Joe Burrow does not get a question like that. Justin Herbert has not. I feel bad for him because I think he's a good quarterback, but he's that's on the subject of another video. But my point is the hypocrisy in the media. like to discredit a two-time MVP and say that there's levels to a guy who's made an all-pro team in a Pro Bowl and can't beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Shouldn't we not keep the same energy when we're criticizing? I say all that to say I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe, because I know regardless if the Ravens have a bad game or a good game, these guys are going to do 360s around, and they're going to keep spilling out the same stuff. I can tell some of these guys don't watch the games. They look at the stats. I can also tell some of them have their favorites. Fine with me. All I ask is that you keep the same energy when you criticize one versus the other. I'm not sitting there saying Josh Allen needs to be vilified. They had a bad game. It happens. On to the next one. But to just see how Lamar at this, again, like to be, well, there's levels to this. I understand Patrick Mahomes is here, Lamar, Burrow, Allen, and there's everybody else. But the criticism is different. And even when they have bad games, like Josh Allen in the postseason, they don't blame him. You know what they blame? McDermott. But when the Ravens have a bad game, it's Lamar. Joe Burrow has a bad game. It's the defense, or it's Zach Taylor. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, just watch the games this weekend. Monday, watch these programs, and you'll see my point. And that's all I'm going to say. But that's going to conclude this episode of the podcast. I apologize for that tangent. It just needed to be said, because I'm frustrated that Lamar coming in, since being in the league, it's just never really garnered, in my opinion, garnered the respect I think he deserves. There's always somebody, does not matter. It's ESPN, Fox Sports, it does not matter. Always find ways to criticize the man. And it's ridiculous. And it really has to stop. If you're going to, I'm all for you praising and critiquing, but this switching up weekly because the Ravens have a bad game and you place all the blame on Lamar, but then if other quarterbacks perform like that, it's excuses. It's not the quarterback. It's the team. It's the coach. Makes zero sense to me. Also, I want to give Lamar a shout out because he said something that was very profound that I respect. And this is what a leader looks like. First and foremost, Mark Andrews will come alive in this offense. I don't care about parlays. I don't care about betting. I'm against it. Personally, that's just me. And what he said on social media, he was not wrong for that, particularly on Twitter, because at the end of the day, these guys are human. They're out there to do a job. Just because he didn't get 10 catches for 100 yards, you miss out on $500. That was your choice to bet. Not they didn't tell you to go bet, but they'll be fine. Mark Andrews will have a I believe he'll have a come out game against the Bengals. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout. I think Joe Burrow and them are gonna be ready to play. I'm kind of curious to see if Cam Taylor-Britt's going to talk his trash because he got exposed on First Take. But I'm gonna say the Bengals. I'm gonna say the Ravens beat the Bengals 31-21.
Guaranteed.
I can see a score like that. But that's going to conclude this episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to check out Team NBS Media. The links and follow us on our socials as well. Please like, comment, subscribe on the podcast here. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Enjoy the rest of y'all's evening. Stay up.
Thank you for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk. If you enjoyed that episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share Big Nate Sports Talk. It's on all the time, anytime.
And I want to thank you. All I want to do is say thank you for everything.